Hello, my name is Gary Blakely with Dean Blakely and Associates, and this is the demo video for PhoneStalker for Android. PhoneStalker is a GPS tracking app, but unlike other tracking apps, PhoneStalker can provide real-time tracking over the internet. By real-time tracking, I mean that, for instance, you could put the phone in someone's car and view their trip on your PC while they're driving around. The delay is approximately 10 seconds, and that delay is there to save battery life. You can see everywhere they go, how fast they're moving, how long they stop somewhere. Practically everything there is to know about the trip. Later on, you can view the trip in Google Earth Street Side View, which is really cool. By the way, this presentation is taking place on an emulator, so the screen is much larger than your Android phone screen, but the videos are easier to produce on the emulator. PhoneStalker has been running on Windows 7 for about 2 years, and the Android version 1.0 was released in February of 2013. The interface for PhoneStalker is very much like that of Windows Phone applications that use the panorama control, which you just simply take your finger and slide to get to the next page. The first screen you see is real-time GPS data. This application is made to perform outdoors. You have to get outdoors and start moving around for it to really demonstrate its capabilities. This GPS data page shows you real-time longitude, latitude, altitude, bearing, and speed as you move about. This is a Google map which shows where you are, and if the follow me is checked, it follows you everywhere you go, so the map moves around depending on your movement. If the follow me is turned off, you can look around anywhere and it won't keep snapping back to your location. You can zoom out, you can zoom in and move about. The record page has a record button. When you hit the record button, it'll turn to a stop button, and there's some options there. Run in background means that PhoneStalker doesn't have to be running to track a trip. So if you check run in background, you can then end the program, and a background service will continue tracking the trip, and you can start it back up and view that trip anytime you want. So the program doesn't have to be running to operate in the background. Real-time tracking sends movement to our cloud servers, and this allows you to go on our website and view the trip real time while it's taking place, or historically, either way. The trips page has a list of all the trips that are in the phone. So for instance, you can select one and you could delete it from the phone, or you could restore it to the screen if you want to look at it. And this is a trip that was taken walking around on Seal Beach Boulevard in California. Okay, what we're going to do now is record a trip, a new trip. It'll be that same trip because we've got it in the emulator. And I'm going to go ahead and record a trip. And we can switch over to the map, and as we start moving around, as the phone starts moving around, you'll see the blue dot, the blue and gray dot represents the phone, and it leaves a trail. And those little yellow dots define what we call a trip leg, and we'll talk more about those later. Those little trip legs contain information about speed and longitude and latitude. And so this is a walk down to the beach, and it's the same trip we viewed earlier. Now, while this trip is recording, you can, as long as run in background is checked, you can end the program and go do whatever you want on the phone, run other applications or anything, and PhoneStalker stays in the background recording the trip, and will record the trip for a number of hours before it finally voluntarily stops. Or the normal ending is you come back in and stop the trip and then save it in the phone. So we'll stop the trip now, and we'll call it Demo 1. You can also see, if we look at the list here, we'll see Demo 1. You can also send the trip to your email address. So when you send the trip, you will be sending it to the email address that you entered in the email address field. You get a friendly audio response saying that it's sent. If you had been in a situation where there was no internet available, it would have just told you to try again later. We'll see that email in another segment. There's options for system of measurement, metric or imperial, and the longitude and latitude. Some people like to see it in degrees, and others like to see it in decimal. There's a help screen, and the help screen is really, you're looking at a web page that's a live web page. So this can change daily, and right now we just have the ability to send us an email, but by the time you see this application, this will have changed. It's a lot easier to do this with your finger than it is with this mouse in the demo. So this ends the first segment of the PhoneStalker demo video. You'll recall in segment 1 we did a send on a trip we took, and it said it's shipping it to my email address, and whenever a trip is sent, this is the email that gets received, and it gives a trip name, the name you assigned on the phone, the distance traveled. This is a bread run. This was to a supermarket to get a loaf of bread. This is an exciting trip. The elapsed time and the average speed. That includes the time that the phone was stopped. And then you can look at your trip historically in 3 different ways. You can click on this file that's supplied, and if you have Google Earth installed, you'll get to review your trip in Google Earth. You can also click on this web link or this web link, and this will take you to Google Maps where you can review your trip, and this will take you to Bing Maps where you can review your trip. So 3 different possible ways to review your trip. If you click on the KML file, and like I say, you have Google Earth installed, it will start up and show you your trip. once you're here, you get an outline of your trip, and you can use all of the facilities of Google Earth to look around and see where the trip went. If it's a more exciting place than a Safeway store, you can kind of relive the trip. We'll see something a little more interesting in a minute. You can view it on Bing Maps. And again, I can zoom in and put the person on the ground to get the views. I can look at it in bird's eye. All the facilities of Bing Maps. All the facilities of Google Maps. You can look at the same trip. So there's 3 ways to historically view a trip. A more interesting one to show if Google has done the street side views. These can be very interesting, going through scenic places to relive a trip. This trip was taken in Sicily, and this little village was pretty well covered with Google Maps. So you go right down and look down the streets where you went, and you'll see a blue line covering the places you went, which is accurate probably within a couple of yards. And you can walk around and turn the same corners. And relive a trip you took. You can even take some side trips that were close to the trip you took. Go back and continue following the trip you took. You can go up and look at it from above and jump down somewhere else if you want. Cool. These are historical ways. The next segment I'm going to show is using our enhanced viewer at our website, where you'll be able to see a trip taken while it's occurring, real time. In this segment of the PhoneStalker demo, we're going to show you real-time tracking and show you the enhanced viewer available at deanblakely.com/realtimeviewer. I've got one of our staffers out driving around in a car right now, and we're monitoring this trip real time. Each one of these legs, trip legs you see, is a little bubble, and as the vehicle, it's in a car in this case, as the vehicle moves, the legs are recorded, and each leg has information about longitude, latitude, the time, the altitude, and the speed between this segment and the last segment, and the distance thus far. And so we know now that the car is right up here. There's about a 10-second delay in this, and you can view it. You can view this street side, but this is not an area that's been mapped 3-dimensional. Bird's eye aerial. We're on aerial view right now, and you can zoom in and zoom out and monitor this trip. If you look at the times, you can take a time here, which was 4:07, and a time here, and you can calculate if the phone stopped and spent an hour or spent 5 minutes, so you can see where the phone's going and when the phone stops and how fast it's going. We can see the speed, 26 miles an hour. So in the viewer here, you put the email address that was in your phone when the trip was sent, And to, of course, enable this kind of recording, you have to check real-time recording. And this email address tells us which legs to look for, and we can see the trip as we continue. Now this viewer is a web viewer. It runs on your PC. You're sitting in your house. We have another application which hasn't been ported to Android yet. It's Real-Time Spy that will be ported to Android anytime now. And it does what this does, except on a phone, on another phone. So this will allow you to physically follow someone you're tracking, because you can move around with a phone, but you can't move around with your PC very well. And the phone knows where it is, and so it also gives you proximity, and you have proximity warnings and proximity alarms, and little email notice there, got part way in the screen. .28 miles an hour. Pulling into this facility here. Oh. And of course you can pan in various directions. The way this works is this is going onto a database, and these records are guaranteed to stay here for 30 days. So as you can see, this is a different type of information than we had on the historic viewing, because here you can see the data for the different legs, where that isn't available on the historical views. But for instance, they're kept around for 30 days, and you can review these 30 days after up to 30 days after the trip's been taken. Probably see some increased speed here, up to 34.7 miles an hour. This might be handy if you're loaning your teenage son the car for the night, and you're worried about him speeding. Not that you'd have much control. So that pretty much ends the demo video for PhoneStalker 1.0 for Android.